Today, we're going to try and demystify Bitcoin. The code, the controversy, the core promise, all of it. Let's dive right in. So, the whole story of Bitcoin really kicks off with this one huge, kind of revolutionary question. Can we have digital money without banks? I mean, can you and I send cash to each other online without some giant company like a bank or Visa sitting in the middle of everything? That's the fundamental problem Bitcoin was built to tackle.
And that question, well, it brings us straight to our first section, which gets to the very heart of why Bitcoin was even created in the first place.
Okay, so this right here, this isn't just some random newspaper clipping. This exact headline was coded into the very first block of Bitcoin ever created by its mysterious founder, Satoshi Nakamoto. Think about that. It was a direct shot at the 2008 financial crisis, basically a time-stamped message saying, hey, the system is broken. We need a new kind of money that isn't controlled by the very institutions that need bailouts.
And that was the whole point, right? The original white paper called it a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. The idea was simple, but powerful. You and me sending money directly to each other. And instead of a bank guaranteeing it, the security would come from pure math, from cryptography. So you might be asking, how on earth do you build trust in a system with no one in charge, right? Well, the answer is an invention that's now almost as famous as Bitcoin itself, the blockchain.
The easiest way to think about the blockchain is like this. Imagine a giant digital notebook. But here's the twist. It's not just on one computer. It's copied and shared across thousands of computers all over the world. So when a transaction happens, a new line gets added to everybody's copy at the exact same time. And the most important part? Once a line is written, it's there forever. You can't erase it. It is permanent. So how do these new lines get added? That's where this thing called mining comes in. You can picture it as this massive global competition. All these powerful computers are racing against each other to solve a really, really hard math problem. The first one to crack it wins, and their prize is getting to add the next block of transactions to the chain. It's this insane amount of computing power that basically acts as the security guard for the whole network, making it almost impossible to cheat. And this whole system, the public notebook, the mining competition, it solves the #1 problem with digital money, what's called double spending. You know, how do you stop someone from just copying a digital coin and spending it twice? Well, because every single transaction is out there in the open for everyone to see, the network just instantly knows and rejects any attempt to spend the same coin more than once. Problem solved. But, you know, success can bring its own headaches. As Bitcoin went from this tiny niche experiment to a global phenomenon, its massive growth started to create some really, really big problems. And the first major issue is speed. It's what people in the space call the scalability problem. See, a new block of transactions only gets added roughly every 10 minutes, and that block can only hold so much data. What does that mean in practice? It means the network can only process maybe 3 to 7 transactions a second. Now, think about Visa. They're doing thousands per second. It's a massive difference, a real bottleneck. And then there's this number, which points to another huge challenge: energy. That global mining competition we talked about, it takes a staggering amount of electricity to run. We're talking about 150 terawatt hours a year. To put that in perspective, that's about the same amount of power that the entire country of Argentina uses in a year. Yeah. So you can imagine, this has kicked off a pretty intense debate about Bitcoin's environmental footprint. Okay, so we've got the tech issues, but then there are the risks to you, the user. And groups like the US National Association of Attorneys General have been pretty clear about them. First, you've got the crazy price swings. It's super volatile. Then there's the very real risk of your coins being stolen from an exchange. And maybe the biggest one for people used to the traditional system, once you send a Bitcoin transaction, that's it. It's gone. There's no calling your bank to get a chargeback. It's like handing someone physical cash. And this isn't just a what-if scenario. Now, to be clear, the core Bitcoin network itself is incredibly secure. It's never been hacked. But the places where people store their Bitcoin, like exchanges, that's a different story. Thefts are a huge problem. I mean, just look at this. One study from back in 2014 estimated that almost 6% of all the Bitcoin out there had already been stolen in major hacks. That's a huge number. So you've got all these massive challenges, right? Scalability, energy, security. You think that might be the end of the story. But that's not what happened.
Instead, the community got to work and started building solutions.
So, to fix that speed problem, developers came up with something called the Lightning Network. It's a really clever idea. It's basically a second layer that sits on top of the main Bitcoin network. It lets you do tons of tiny, instant, almost free transactions off-chain. The bar tab analogy is perfect. You in a coffee shop can open a channel, you buy coffee every day for a month, and only at the very end do you settle up the final bill in one single transaction on the main blockchain. It's a potential game changer for making Bitcoin usable for everyday payments. And what about the rules and regulations? Well, the conversation there is all about finding a balance. Most experts are saying, look, let's regulate the on-ramps and off-ramps, the exchanges where people buy and sell Bitcoin with regular money. Let's protect consumers there. But let's be careful not to create rules that choke off the innovation happening in the core technology itself. All right, so we've talked about the problems of today, but now let's look way down the road to what might be the single biggest threat to Bitcoin's very existence. And that threat has a name: quantum computing. The basic fear is this. Someday, someone might build a computer so ridiculously powerful, a quantum computer, that it could literally break the encryption that keeps all of Bitcoin secure. It could crack the codes that protect every single wallet.
And this isn't some tiny risk. A study in 2022 estimated that up to a quarter of all the Bitcoin in existence is sitting in older types of wallets that are potentially vulnerable to this kind of attack. Why? Well, it's a bit technical, but basically, with these old wallets, a key piece of their security info is already public on the blockchain. It's like leaving the master key plans out in the open, just waiting for someone with the right tool to come along.
Now, let's not panic. This is not a next week problem. Most experts think we have at least a decade, maybe more, before a quantum computer powerful enough to threaten Bitcoin could even be built. They measure the power in these things called qubits, and we're just not there yet. But the clock is definitely ticking.
But here's the good news. Just like with all the other problems we've talked about, the community is already on it. Developers are already working on what's called Post-Quantum Cryptography, basically a new generation of encryption that's designed from the ground up to be safe from even the most powerful quantum computers imaginable.
And that really brings us full circle, doesn't it? The entire story of Bitcoin is this constant, incredible cycle. A huge, seemingly impossible problem appears, whether it's speed or energy or even a future supercomputer. And then the community races to build a solution. Its real test, its greatest test, is whether it can keep adapting. That's the real story, and the final chapter is still a long way from being written. Thanks for joining us.